हे अनम्यूट म्यूट कसं करायचं तुम्हाला मॅडम म्यूट
So I again take the opportunity to welcome you all to the 5th day of this faculty development program. The countdown begins now. We have 2 more days left, tomorrow and day after. And I take the opportunity to welcome Dr. Geeta M. Patil, our first resource person today. And she is a professor in Head Department of English, B. Ambedkar Marathwada University, Aurangabad, Maharashtra. We also have with us for the second session, Dr. A.K. Mishra, Professor and Head Department of Linguistics, FLU Shillong Campus. And our moderators today are Dr. Sarita Virangana, Professor and Head Department of English, Gaya College, Gaya, and Dr. Amritendu Ghoshal, Assistant Professor, Department of English, AM College, Gaya. So over to Dr. Sarita to welcome Dr. Geeta M. Patil and request her to deliver the lecture. Dr. Sarita? Did she get disconnected? Sarita, you have to unmute yourself.
Hello.
You have to
Yes.
Unmute. Yes.
Okay, I have unmuted myself.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Nipa ma'am. A very good afternoon to all the participants. Today, I am the moderator. I, Sarita Virangana, Head Department of English, Gaya College, Gaya. Today is the 5th day of faculty development literature. And I'm sure you all will agree that we as teachers have been empowered and energized by listening to the various discourses on issues related to teaching as well as research. I congratulate and thank the organizing committee for putting all the efforts for this 7-day long program. Today, as our speaker, we have Dr. Geeta M. Patil ma'am for Maharashtra. I'm reading out the brief biodata which I have with me. She is a professor in the Department of English Language and Literature, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Marathwada University, Aurangabad. She has a teaching experience of 27 years and has successfully completed her tenure as head of the department. She has played significant role in the academic functioning of her university by being the member of Management Council, Academic Council, and Board of Studies. She was the chairperson of Grievances Committee too. She was also member of Board of Studies, SRT University, Nanded. She has authored 2 books and has 45 research articles to her credit. Dr. Patil has completed 3 major projects sanctioned by the UGC and is visiting professor to other universities and colleges. Being a resource person and plenary speaker, she has delivered talks on various subjects at international and national conferences. She has also been the honorary professor of Maharashtra Government Training Institute. Professor Patil's devotion and constant effort towards the enhancement of academic environment has won accolades and awards. She has been very vocal regarding issues related to women. I welcome her to deliver her talk on feminist utopia. Over to you, Professor Geeta Patil, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible to everybody?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And a very good afternoon to everybody. At the outset itself, I would like to thank the professor at the head department of English, Gaya University, Dr. Niva Singh Madam, for inviting me to deliver a lecture or to give a talk on to the faculty development program candidate. I would like to thank my very generous and close friend of mine, Professor Neeraj Kumar sir. In fact, everybody in the department knows me very well. Since so many years, we are meeting to different programs, to different seminars and conferences. So even I am thankful to them also for giving consent for my talk. The topic is given to me by the head of the department is feminist utopia. When this topic was given to me, I was surprised. Even in the introduction, it was said that I'm a very vocal for the feminist issues. In fact, most of my work does not consider these issues, but the last project which I have submitted to UGC definitely talks about the feminine issues related to different countries, I can say, though the issue is one, but it has been observed and addressed differently in different countries. So I would like to, I can say, thank once again Professor Neeraj Kumar for reminding me and giving me once again a rehearsal to my submitted UGC project. Though the topic was a little different, but feminist utopia is close by to that topic. While submitting my synopsis, I have submitted the 2 introductory remarks, or I can say quotations in the beginning itself. And those says that, do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes. Walt Whitman said this. Most of my focus is related to American feminism. So that's why I have chosen Walt Whitman's quotation in the beginning itself. Now these words like contradict and multitudes are very important in this quotation. Since the beginning, because the woman is always related, or I can say identified in different roles. When you talk about a man, you don't talk about his different roles. You talk about him as a man, as a power, I can say as a dominating figure in the society. But when you talk about a woman, you try to figure her out in a particular role, as a mother, as a wife, as a sister, different roles everybody is aware about. So that's why I say, do I contradict myself? When I think about myself, I think about myself as a mother. I think about myself as a wife. I think about myself as a sister. I think about myself as a daughter. Where is a woman? This is a question. I never think about a woman in myself in first at the first stage. The reason behind this is that the woman always think about the child in her womb, and that's why whenever I deliver a topic on feminism, I always say that let me confess that I am not a feminist, and the reason is very personal because I have a son. So I cannot say I am a feminist, I am a mother, I am a woman, and all these things, but I am not a feminist. I believe in a postmodern feminism, that is the equality. That for postmodern modern feminism believes in equality. That's why I say that I contain multitudes and I believe in this. I can say I agree with this. Am I audible to everybody, madam? My talk is very clear.
Yeah, it is very clear, ma'am.
Very clear. That's good. The second quotation goes that if you ask them, in brackets, women, I can say any woman, insistently what they are thinking about, they can only reply nothing and about everything. This nothing has a great power in itself. What is this nothing? Because she is powerless. I'm talking about the beginning of feminism. I'm talking about the beginning of this thought. That powerless woman, she is saying that I'm thinking about nothing, but she is thinking about everything. What is existing in this world is always concerns to her. The first word in a given topic, feminism, explains this. And the second word in that topic given to me is utopia. Now, I was talking to one of my old friends, and I said that this topic is given to me, feminist utopia. There is some problem.
No, there is no problem on this part, ma'am.
So when I was talking to one of my old friends that are discussing about this topic, they said, how can you say that there is a feminist or feminism related with utopia? So then I explained the dictionary meaning of utopia, saying that it aims at perfection. And can there be any perfection in this world? It is impossible. In my synopsis, the explanation about
Subodhji, is there any problem?
No problem from my end. I don't know.
But she is there. But
hello.
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I think network problem from
Some network problem for your side, it seems.
Maybe the weather is not very good today also.
You can go on with your talk and you can switch off your video if you want to, if there is a disturbance. Otherwise, we would like to see you as well. But if there is a disturbance, you can put off your video. That will help in your network connection.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is very difficult. I mean, while talking on, when you are in a mood to deliver a lecture and suddenly you get disconnected, everything got disconnected. So what you are talking about and what you are thinking about, everything goes away. So the thing is that, so aiming for perfection which is impossible to achieve means utopia. And when you connect this meaning to feminism, feminists always are trying to have the perfect situation, the perfect society for themselves in this world. And the realist people are always objecting to that and saying that it is impossible to achieve. Before 300 years, probably, the society in which we are living in, the women are working, people are going out, in most of the spheres, in most of the situations, we are having the equal positions, we are enjoying different hierarchy of different higher positions into the society. Maybe probably 300 years before, people wouldn't have thought about this society. Even let me tell you, the educationist in Maharashtra, before the independence, even when he started, Mahatma Phule, when he started the school for women's education, he never thought of that. There is a head of the department in Gaya College who is a lady, and a lady is inviting a lady to deliver a talk on the FDP program, and one more lady is introducing the invitee. So this may not be a situation thought by before 100 years, 150 years before by the people. But people were trying to imagine the society. People were trying to ignite the thoughts of the people for the innovations, new thoughts, and that's why this is possible probably. And utopia is doing that. What is literature basically? Literature basically is imagination. That's why I'm talking about fiction. And that's why probably it is called as, the meaning of fiction itself is imagination, fictitious things where you imagine. What is science fiction which we are talking about nowadays? Imagination. And with the help of this imagination, people are trying to think and go and achieve the different places in space and different innovations in technology due to this. The utopia in feminism is trying to do this with a great help. The feminist thought, I can say that, is the imagination of the people where they can imagine a society where the women can live equally with them. So it's not simply a rejection of a power. Feminism is not a rejection of a power, but about the transforming the existing power structure, and in the process, transformity of the very concept of power itself. What is power exactly? We are not talking about rejecting a power. We are not talking about transformation of a power in feminism. We are talking about the concept of power itself, that the power equally divided in everybody in the society. When I will come to the third phase, I will explain this more in detail. So when I was talking about this transformation of society, in the beginning, when the utopia almost started in feminism, the first phase, I can say that is late 19th century, is the first phase of feminist utopia. That in I can say, or maybe early 19th century, maybe first utopian feminist book we can refer to Mary Griffiths, that is 300 years hence, which was almost published in 1835, 36, something like that. So this book is probably the first feminist utopian book. And there the writer was talking about making a parody of the situations, different situations existing in the society. And he was reversing the role of the family structure, the marriage institution, and making people laugh. So the first feminist utopia was the comedy basically. Remember, to create a comedy and to entertain people. This was the first feminist utopia. To entertain people by giving the reverse role. You know, when you can see that when the male candidates used to perform the role of a female candidates into the different acts, so sometimes, you know, they are not used to such actions of a woman, and that used to create a comedy and people used to laugh. That was a break in between for the serious plays in the society. So this type of idea picked up by the writer and started creating a parody or creating a comedy of different roles. But from there, the idea began, the imagination began of thinking that if this actually happens to in the society, always a gender equality, interrogation of the marriage institution, and it talks about the domestic arrangements to ease the work labor of a woman. So these three were the major, I can say that the aspects of the first phase of the feminist utopia. I would like to repeat it once again, the gender equality. From that parody, people accepted, picked up this concept that there should be gender equality. Woman is also equally important for the society. And then the second thing came, that interrogation of marriage institution. Everything in the marriage institution and in every society, this interrogation was compulsorily asked, compulsorily thought about, and then from there, the feminists started thinking that how do we revive arrangement. See, when we nowadays we see that this the president of this country, president of that country is a lady, is a woman, and how her husband is supporting her, sharing her labor, supporting her for her career, and then these pictures are very nice for us to watch on TV. This was never thought of. But this gender equality in first phase of feminist utopia, the writers they wrote about this, that how what
Did she get disconnected? Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself again. Unmute yourself, madam. Yeah, yes.
is it okay?
Yeah, it is okay, but it seems there is a serious issue of network on your side.
Yeah. This is the weather is not okay. So probably because of that, the connection is not working properly. So it is okay now?
Yeah, it is okay.
Yeah. So I can say that the first phase was I was talking about revised domestic arrangements to ease women's labor, and this theory put by the philosopher Kessler, and he said that if you divide a domestic labor work.
Ma'am, you have muted yourself. You had muted yourself again. She is now again disconnected.
Yes, got disconnected, I think.
I'm calling her. Got disconnected and she is trying to connect again.
हाँ जी सर, हेलो, हाँ शुरू कर दें? ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है।
Yes, ma'am, he is ready. He is ready. So I think then the role of another moderator will come.
अच्छा,
Good afternoon, esteemed teachers and respected participants. I am Amritendu Ghoshal, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Anugrah Memorial College, Gaya. I welcome you all to the second session of the fifth day of the online faculty development program on emerging trends in English language and literature, organized by Postgraduate Department of English and Research Center, Magad University, Bodh Gaya, in collaboration with Department of English, SN Sinha College, Jahanabad. I thank Nibha ma'am, Subodh sir, Neeraj sir, and the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity to moderate this session. In this session, we will have the privilege to listen to Dr. A.K. Mishra, Professor and Head, Department of Linguistics, IFLU, Shillong campus, on psychology of language learning. Dr. Mishra is currently working as Professor of Linguistics in the Department of Linguistics, English and Foreign Language, University Shillong campus. He received his master's and PhD degrees in linguistics at Jawaharlal Nehru University. He has worked as faculty at American Institute of Indian Studies, Varanasi, Assam Central University, Silchar, Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, and Northeast Regional Institute of Education, NCERT, Shillong, and as director of Central Institute of Indian Languages under MHRD, Mysore. He has authored 19 and edited 9 books. Besides, he has more than 30 papers published in reputed national and international journals. Sir, I'm sure the participants are eager to listen to your lecture. I request you to take over and kindly address the gathering. Sir.
yeah, ठीक है. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar, 6-day webinar of Magad University English Department. I'm delighted to talk about the psychology of learning, and as you all know, that it's a very vast topic. Even one item of it can take about an hour, and we have so many, say, components included in this topic. Anyway, I'll try to enlighten you as much as possible within this given time. One thing that is important for us to know and remember is that any learning, whatever we do, actually happens either in the brain or through the brain. So language is no exception. Language also resides in the brain. And as we all know that language is primarily spoken, and it's the brain that takes a part in all the activities related to brain, or related to language, whether it's speech comprehension, speech production, understanding the metaphors, the syntax, the morphology, and even making use of the language for literature, which is the fiction. There also, actually, the spoken language plays a greater role. Now, having said that, another thing is also important, that when we say that language happens inside the brain, there is another aspect to it, that there are two things actually that make a language complete. And one is the knowledge of the language system, in whichever language, linguistic community we are born. So the system of the language operating within that community, that speech community. So knowledge of the language system, the sounds, how sounds combine to become words, and words combine to become phrases and sentences, then sentences combine to become paragraph, and paragraph to bigger discourse items, whether spoken and written. So what I'm trying to say is that number one, what we write, what we see in literature, or when we have a PPT or we write an essay or a letter, actually they are all dependent more on the spoken language, which happens inside the brain. So one is the knowledge of the language system, and the second important thing is that so when I say that language inside the brain, the language system resides inside the brain. So what neurons do among themselves, what the neurons are communicating about that, and how they communicate, that gives us the knowledge of the language system. And also important is that what neurons do with outside things, things that reside outside the brain. And so that can be referred to as the knowledge of the world. And that's also known as the encyclopedic knowledge. So in order to become, say, proficient in language, or make all uses of language in our life, is dependent on the language system, understanding of the language system, the knowledge of that, and also the encyclopedic knowledge. So I'll not go into encyclopedic knowledge so much, because that is actually related to mostly visual things, meaning, episodic memory, etc. I'll concentrate myself on what happens to the spoken language that we talk about. Uh, Number one is, let me share some of the slides, then it will become more clear. Although I'm used to talking orally, I don't like to write or make PPTs. Anyway, so okay, let me share this screen first. Okay, this one will share. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is starting to share. Yes, sir, it's
Okay,
visible. It's visible.
right. Okay, the size is okay.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Um, so there are certain things that are required. The prerequisites are there. So let's understand first those prerequisites, and then we'll move on to the psychological factors and nitty-gritty of it, that how language is learned or acquired. So number one is the idea given by Chomsky, famous linguist, and the summary is that after Skinner, he was the first person to say that language is innate. That means that our brain is given, our brain is equipped with a device which is present at birth. Whenever a child is born, that child's brain already has a system called language acquisition device, which is a kind of module, or you can say the blueprint of language, not a particular language. And that we all get genetically. It's biologically imprinted in our brain. This is what Chomsky meant when he said that we have a language faculty, and that way language is actually innate. And the language acquisition device contains all the rules, or the specific structures involved in the brain, and how language is processed. So the blueprint or module of all the rules and principles of language general, not a particular language. And when child is born with this innate capacity, with this module or blueprint of language called language acquisition device, when she gets input from her parents and caregivers, relatives, then the rules and principles residing in this innate language acquisition device get activated, and the child keeps on working on the inputs that she gets, which is not pakka, which is not say well formed. she may receive some inputs, which sentences or constructions, which are actually very, say, well constructed, but she doesn't receive it the way it should have been given to her. There may be some pauses, some mispronunciation, sentences may be shorter in her mother or father's speech, intonation may be different from the actual language that is being used in the community, and so on. So this LED helps the child get her innate language, the rules activated, and later on she works on that 2 years, 3 years, and then she gets maturation, and in that makes mistakes, corrects herself, and finally she becomes proficient in the language where she is born in. Uh, Now, related to this concept, we have a concept of universal grammar. Again, mostly based on the research of Chomsky, Noam Chomsky, and that says that all the languages of the world, whatever we have between 6,000 and 7,000 languages, they essentially share certain common basic features of language at the level of, say, phonology, sounds. So they'll all have some vowels, some consonants. All languages will have at the level of morphology, say something related to singular and plural, the number, some amount of say gender, masculine, feminine, neuter, and so on, and something to make convert a verb into noun, convert a noun into an adjective, and so on. So morphological structures are there, and then at the level of syntax, they all have something common, that they'll make use of nouns and verbs to connect through some means, explicit or implicit. They'll make some phrases, noun phrase, verb phrase, prepositional phrase, adjectival phrase, and so on. Similarly, all the languages will exploit some rule of word order. So they'll all have the ideas called subject, object, verb, and only there are 3 to 5 possibilities that will be exploited by all these 6 to 7,000 languages. So most of the languages exploit a word order which has a subject first, then object, and then verb, like Hindi, Bangla, Tamil, etc. And a few languages will have a word order where they have subject, then verb, and then object, like English. And some other languages like Arabic, Hebrew, they'll have verb first, then subject, and then object. So these are the most frequently found structures at the level of word order. And some very rare, in 1 or 2 languages, you'll find that the verb is followed by object and there is no subject at all, or subject and verb is there and there is a subject and object is there and there is no verb at all, or one word can be a sentence, and so on. So what happens, there are certain principles that what can come before what, after that, after what. So either you have subject followed by verb, or subject followed by object, and the languages exploit this rule. Similarly, in prepositional phrase, so there are only 2 possibilities. Some languages will have a preposition that is before the noun, some item before the noun, preposition, and like English, and some will have the preposition after the noun, like Hindi. So in English, we'll have in the chair, on the tree, but in Hindi, we'll have tree par, ped par, kursi mein, bistar mein. So post position comes after. So that's the only possibility. So what we mean, and what Chomsky meant by universal grammar was that these are certain principles that how you can construct your morphology, your phrases, your sentences. Meaning also you'll find antonyms are there, synonyms are there, entailment is there, presupposition is there, some idioms are there. So they are all common basically. So there are certain principles, and how languages differ. They are not all the same, all 6,000 odd languages. If the basic principles are same, the grammar is similar, they are not same. So what happens? They all exploit the principles, similar principles, but the parameters, what will fit into those principles, will differ from language to language. And I have already hinted at that the principle is that a sentence should have subject, verb, and object. English will have a parameter that subject can contain this kind of thing if the verb is transitive. If the verb is intransitive, some other kind of subject will come. Hindi will exploit postposition. It will not have preposition, but English will exploit preposition. The principle is saying that you have to connect the two items in the sentence. The two nouns or noun and pronoun in the sentence using some case. So that principle is saying, but how you do that differs in English and Hindi. So parameters are different. What fits the items that fit in there, they are different, but the principles are similar. I have elaborated this with some example. So as I've already mentioned that we have phrases and the name of the phrase will be the head. So noun phrase contains a noun as head. Verb phrase will have verb as head. Prepositional or postpositional phrase will have a preposition or a postposition as head. Adjectival phrase will have an adjective as head, and so on. Now, if you compare the two languages, English and Hindi Urdu, we'll see that English is head initial, that heads will come before other items, and Hindi Urdu is head final. That means the other items will come after the head. Let's see this in this example. So in Hindi, we'll say Anshu ne ek sev khaya. Now, khaya is the head of the verb phrase, ek sev khaya. So now the head has come after the object. English also has object and verb, but what happens in 1b? We see that the verb has occurred before the object. Ate an apple, which will be something like in Hindi translation, like khaya se, but we don't say that. So principle is same, that if you have subject and object, if you have verb and object, there has to be some order in that. Let's take another example of prepositional phrase. So in Hindi, which is head final, that means the head of a phrase will come after the other item. So kursi par is a prepositional phrase. So what happens? The postposition par comes after kursi, after noun. But in English, being head initial, the head will come before the other noun, other noun or verb or whatever other items, other phrases. So in English, we have in coming before the chair, that is kursi. But in Hindi Urdu, we have par, which is on or in, coming after kursi. So now this is why this is important, that we have a language acquisition device and we also have universal grammar. So this is very important to understand how a child acquires her mother tongue, which is the first language, L1. So as we said that a child is equipped at birth with a language acquisition device which contains universal grammar. The blueprint is there. The principles, the blueprint or the module of grammar is there. Only thing is that this has to be activated. So when she gets input, here's the parents again and again, khalo beta, pani pee lo, roti khayega. So this activates the principle, and she knows the parameters in her language is that the object will come before the verb. Roti khalo, pani pee lo. No Hindi speaker mother will say to her child, khalo roti. Generally, for exceptional circumstances, it can be there. But normal situation will be that the object will come before the verb. So this the blueprint of grammar gets activated, and child will make some mistake, then more input, and as she matures, her brain matures, she gets used to the principles and parameters of the language she is born into. So this is how the first language is acquired. Now we move to brain areas of language, what happens inside the brain. Although we have theories and people have worked, psychologists and scientists, and they have identified certain areas in brain, which function other than their secondary functions. Also, they take part in language. For example, see, when we have fur in English, so lip is there and upper teeth are there, but they are primarily meant for something else. Similarly, in brain, when we have, let's see this picture. So similarly, when we have in brain, we say they identified that Broca's area is responsible for speech production. Wernicke's area is responsible for the speech comprehension, and motor area, the primary motor area, makes whatever the instructions come from Broca's area and Wernicke's area, then the motor area gives directions to lips, teeth, tongue, the glottis, and so on, and the language is produced. The sounds are produced, sound combined into that. And similarly, we have certain other areas like hippocampus or hypothalamus, amygdala. They take care of the meaning part, the memory part. So they combine with Broca's area and Wernicke's area, and then we have the production of speech and also understanding of speech. So it's all, although roughly we know that okay, these are the areas that take part in language production and comprehension, but no area is can be say outlined that this is the place where language happens. Actually, many areas of the brain take part in language production or perception. For example, you know that in humans, when humans from animals became humans, one thing that happened was languageation. That was the main difference. It was the language that made animals human, and animals did not have the prefrontal area, the cortex area located in the front part of the brain. That was missing in here. This part here, that was missing, and that developed in humans some 50 to 70,000 years ago, and that is responsible for the executive function, the logic, the reasoning that gives direction, that has reasons, what is wrong, what is not wrong, what will be correct or incorrect, things like that. And actually, that controls most of these brain areas, the functions of that. So we cannot say that this area is primarily or importantly meant only for language. So these are the areas. If person has become literate, then what will happen? This visual area will also take part. So sound will be connected through Broca's area, Wernicke's area, meaning coming from there, and motor area that directs the lips, tongue, glottis, say velum, etc., to take part in language production and understanding the language. But if person is literate, when she learns reading and writing, then sound will also be matched with the pictures, the visuals, that how k is picture wise related to ka in Bangla or k in English or ka in Devanagari in Hindi, Marathi, and so on. That also gets added there. So it's the entire part actually taking part in the language production and comprehension. Uh, I'm looking at my mobile whether Subodha has sent any message or it keeps yeah, making sound. Sorry. Now, so there are certain other areas in brain which also take part in language production and comprehension. You'll see here the hypothalamus that is very important in memory, how to store the meaning of words, meaning of sentences. Amygdala you see here, and that is mainly responsible. It's actually evolutionary organ that it was responsible for fear and anxiety, that what to do when a situation comes where some danger is there or some unpleasant things are happening. Then this is amygdala is the part which makes human either to fight or take flight, run away or fight. But this also is related to the emotional memory. It's related to emotions and memory. As you know, emotions and memory are very important in language. I'll come to that a little later. Then hippocampus, this horseshoe-shaped area in brain, which is there in both sides, that also takes part in memory, storing of memory, and little part is played by cerebellum also there in language. Okay, now coming to, so as I've already mentioned that Broca's area is responsible mainly for speech production. Motor area helps us uh, produce the sounds and get activated for sound or understand and receive the sound. And Wernicke's area is related to processing the written and spoken language, comprehend. So see, for example, if I said tui, this is tui. Yeah, most of you, if unless you are from say Naga or Cochin language background, you won't understand what I hinted at. Tui means water. Now it's not so sound only, but the meaning. So that part, comprehension, is related to Wernicke's area, and then angular gyrus, it connects these areas, Broca's area and Wernicke's area, and that's how sound gets meaning, meaning gets sound when we produce language. So angular gyrus also is important. Actually, I'm not telling you what angular gyrus is. There are sulci, sulcus, gyrus, so that will make it very long. Now coming to what things are there in Broca's area, Wernicke's area, or motor area, visual area, or a hippocampus. What is there? So they contain billions and billions of neurons, the nerve cells. Actually, and as you know, many of you will know that everything that happens inside the brain happens through the mediation of neurons. Whatever happens in the neurons, that only leads us to whatever activity, cognition, perception, language, everything actually is done by the neurons. So as at birth, you'll be surprised to know that at birth, a child has about 150 billion to 200 billion neurons. And they have about 150 trillion synapses. But after the age of 3 or 4, they lose millions and millions of neurons and synapses. And when they are adults, they have fewer neurons and synapses. So this number that I have given you, which is the rough estimate, so an adult brain contains about 90 billion neurons, and these neurons communicate to each other. They talk to each other through synapses. So synapses are, I'll show you the picture. So synapses are the places in neurons which actually take part in communication. So what happens when we have some information through eyes, some information through nose, some information through skin, some information entering our brain through ear. So all these go to the neurons. Now, they don't stay there. If neurons don't do anything, nothing will happen. We'll become dead. So so neurons have to remain all the time active, and there is some amount of electricity generated by the ions that are there in the blood. So whatever we eat, it's converted to mostly say glucose, and that contains some ions like calcium ion with two positive charges, sodium ions with one positive charge, and so on. So some ions are there, and because the ions keep moving, and the concentration of ions inside the neurons is dissimilar. So outside its membrane, outside the nerve cell, the concentration will be different of ion, and inside the brain, inside the membrane, inside the cell, it will be different. So that imbalance of ions generates some electricity, some kind of electricity, and that moves certain chemicals contained in the glucose and other items like hormones. Dopamine can be there, no, other hormones like oxytocin can be there. So they, through the use of this electricity generated by the charged ions, these neurotransmitters, these chemicals, move from one neuron to another through synapses. So, and between two synapses, there is a very tiny microscopic, ultra microscopic gap. And so electricity doesn't pass from one neuron to another. The electricity makes these chemical things to move from one neuron to another. And these chemicals take the information, whatever information that we have got from five senses, including the language, the items of language, the words. I'll show you what words are actually, and why it's different from our understanding. We think that the sentences and words contain consonants and vowels and diphthongs. No, they are all converted to electromagnetic waves of different hertz. So some vowel will have 100 hertz height, some will have 90, some will have 500, some consonant will have 300 hertz. So they are all converted into waves, and through ears the waves enter these neurons, and by our experience, by our practice, these neurons get habituated to receiving certain specific type of information. So the wavelengths for sh or wavelengths for a and u, they will hit a specific neuron because they are the ones which always receive these electromagnetic waves. And they are the ones when we want to talk to someone, so they get activated, and then different parts of brain like motor area will tell. So what I'm saying, language is not consonant vowel word that we write. Pen is not PIN written. It's I'll show you first, and then I'll come back to synapses. I hope it's okay. My speed is not too fast, sir.
It is fine, sir. Please go on.
Okay, okay. So now see first, okay, so this is one nerve cell, one neuron. It has various components, and these branches, small branches, are called dendrites. And at the end of dendrites, we have synapses. And so there are, as I said, 100 billion neurons, so there won't be any space. They are all kind of no, meeting each other all the time. So because of the electricity generation due to charged ions, some chemicals like potassium or sodium ions or calcium ions, iron, things in glucose, the components of that, and then some neurotransmitters like dopamine, oxytocin, or GABA. These things move, and between two synapses there is a cleft. There is very tiny space, and through because of being pushed by the electricity, the charged ions push these neurotransmitters to the other synapse, and this is how the communication between two neurons takes place. And these neurotransmitters, these chemicals, contain all the information, whether it's visual or auditory, the consonant or vowel or word or sentence, they all get passed from one neuron to another through this process. I have simplified it too much. It's not that simple, but for your sake, I have made it very simplistic. Okay, now let's see. So what language is actually? So this is what happens in the brain. So when we say shoe, so shoe is not SHOE. It's actually this. You see the first part, the wave, and the air and other parts of. So these are actually electromagnetic waves that make sh and u, and together shoe. Zoo, you can see the the sh part here. The first thing, it has no, is different in shape, and z is different, but u is almost similar, but because of z, u is having a little no bigger construction in terms of electromagnetic wave. Our sentence like they did not understand you will look like this. This is what is there. So this is what goes into the brain. So this, they didn't understand you. So in fast speech, in English speaker, it will be they didn't understand you. And this is what it looks like. So there's no consonant vowel written there. So entire sentence, word, everything goes like this to the brain. And these electromagnetic waves, they hit certain neurons because but genetically we are made, you know, some areas and some neurons they are trained to receive it. And what happens? So if a particular sound combination goes to a particular neuron all the time. So shoe goes to a particular set of neurons, dendrites, shoe, 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 and that connects with, say, lace and some other neuron. So shoe, lace, shoe, lace, shoe, lace. So these neurons get trained to understanding that, okay, shoe and Wernicke's area, hippocampus, they will give meaning to it and make us understand that, oh, shoe and lace are connected and they go together. So they make a good combination. Whereas shoe, pencil, shoe, pen, they don't make sense meaning wise. So this is what happens. So neurons keep firing. The electrically charged ions make neurotransmitters go to other synapses and neurons, and they contain all the information, whether it's language or visual or whatever. So they keep going there, and because of this constant firing and certain neurons firing to each other, they like company of each other. So they kind of get trained to being in their company, and this makes words and sentences. So the certain areas get trained by practice and experience, and then these information go to the memory areas in our brain, like amygdala or hippocampus, hypothalamus, and so they are stored on some to neurocortex, the frontal cortex area. That's why you must have seen that, see, when we are in difficulty, trouble, that we are not able to convey something, we scratch here, because that meaning or thinking comes there. Or sometimes words are also stored in this part, so we scratch there. Oh, what is that, what is that? And so these are all connected. So this is important, that neurons get trained by constantly firing, and they bind, they make friendship, they bind together very well, and this is how language happens inside the brain. Now, quickly coming back to another item which is important there. These I have taken care of. Memory, I'll come back. Another important thing is that mental lexicon. So, see, when child is developing, her brain is developing, she has more neurons and more synapses. Why? Because she has to see, she has to hear so many things which are not useful. So memory is very important. So everything that goes through our ears and eyes, we do not take them to long-term memory. Actually, so short-term, first we keep the items in short-term memory, 5 to 7 items. And if those information, the items are important, interesting, useful, then, and if they are rehearsed, they are practiced. So suppose we want to learn a new word in English, in say cookie language, say miso, tui, water. So it's not enough that I told you, or English word like say volition or rendezvous. It's not enough that I tell you and this will go and stay there and you become proficient, you will start making use of it. No, when you see it many times, you hear it many times, you utter it many times, this particular word, then the neurons get used to it. Okay, this is the construction, and then that goes to the memory. So this is how words are stored in memory. And the collection of the words, actually word is a wrong term for a linguist to use. Lexeme is the right term. Lexeme is the word that is stored there in the brain, and word is what comes out from the mouth. For example, quickly I'll give you an example. So lexeme is good here, but lexeme has three word forms. Lexeme good is realized when we speak as good, better, and best. So lexeme is one, that is good, GOOD in capital, because it is there, not written, the sound sequence with meaning and culture related to good. And when we speak, then it assumes three forms, sometimes good, sometimes better, sometimes best. So these are words. So I should use lexeme. And this is what you get in dictionary also, mostly. So in the dictionary, you'll find entry for good. You won't find entry in B series, any word beginning with, say, in bold letter, better. No. In best will not be found in dictionary. You'll find go, because that is the lexeme. So go, go will be there, but in dictionary, as entry item, as lemma, you don't find goes, going, went, gone, no, because they are word forms of the lexeme go. So brain stores through experience, through practice, through inputs that the child receives. All these lexemes are stored there. And lexemes are not stored in such a way that their pronunciation is located in one area, their meaning is located in another area, what kind of prefix, suffix they'll have will be located in some other area, what words they'll combine, syntax, whether they are subject or object or transitive or intransitive verb. No, they, whenever a lexeme is stored in the brain, all these information are stored along with one lexeme. So when we want to speak, we select certain lexemes from there. Suppose we have to make a sentence. And the idea is that behind language, there is something which is not tied to language in our brain, and that is proposition, the ideas, no, the constructs, the abstract constructs. And those constructs are same in all the language speakers. So propositions are not tied to a particular language. For example, if I am hungry, so the proposition, the idea of being hungry is not tied to a particular language. But when this idea comes and we have to communicate, we have to speak, or we hear someone say that, then in English it will be conveyed as I am hungry. In Hindi, mujhe bhook lagi hai. See, words are different, order is different. In Bangla, amai khide peche. No. So see, the words are there. So the lexeme content. The moment you choose in English, for example, say the table. Now you cannot have a verb eat. The table wants to eat an apple. No. So all these information are there, that what is transitive, intransitive, what can be placed together, what comes before, what comes after. So mental lexicon gets all these things. And mental lexicon again is develops in child through experience, by practice, the culture that the child is located in. So for example, Sala, if I call, say, an Israeli, or Chinese have now learned this, so not Chinese, say an Arabic, Sala, it will make no sense to them. But if a Bangla or Hindi Bhojpuri speaker hears calling me someone Sala, then they'll have a different reaction. So it's not that words are there. So culture makes it. You call
Excuse me,
someone.
sir.
Yes, sir.
I would request you to please conclude as like take some more while and please conclude because
Okay, fine.
the
Right, right. Okay, so just about 5 to 7 minutes. I'll not
speaker could not
read.
finish.
Fine, fine.
Yes,
So I'll not.
yes.
So do I have to come back, or I can
Sir,
take a break and then last?
no, sir, please conclude the address and then
Okay, so
we
give me
can
10
take
minutes. 10
questions.
minutes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, okay.
We'll,
10,
then
10
we'll
minutes.
take questions and
Right,
then
right, right.
okay.
So yeah, so this is what mental lexicon. I have given an example that these two birds, Trakoban is found in Nagaland. So you understand the abstract construction that this is a bird left hand side, but you will not be able to give it a name. You won't understand the cultural significance in that Naga culture. Similarly, Ruff of Norway. See, it looks different. You know that this is bird, but if I say, oh, I like Ruff, it will make no sense to you, whether culturally or linguistically. So this is how mental lexicon. I'll summarize by, see, all these are important for us to understand the psychology of language and psychology of language learning. So for that, you have to understand first what happens to language construct inside the brain. Then only you'll understand how language is learned or acquired and what things are required. That's why I kind of gave you a quick say glimpse of what things are related. Now that's I'll finish it. Don't worry. Now there is another thing that is important, that when we talk about language learning, see, we have to differentiate between two things, and this idea comes from the theory of Stephen Krashen in 1982 or so. We differentiate between language acquisition and language learning. So language acquisition is generally reserved for the first language, mother tongue, because the principles are there, LAD is there, innate capacity is there. And so child acquires from the inputs that she gets from her family members. So this activity, the LAD is activated, universal grammar is there, that is activated, and child acquires language from outside. It's not there. But in language learning, so language acquisition is a subconscious process. It happens, no, we do not understand. No mother teaches her child, beta, see, hum is plural in English, but in Hindi, I'm sorry, hum, but you can use it for singular also. So that's why even if it is used for singular, you have to make the verb plural. Hum, hum Aniket hain. You don't say hum Aniket hoon. Laluji can say that, but generally we don't use that kind of construction. So child is not taught by her experience using this thing that is present in her brain. She acquires the language. But in language learning, it is say conscious effort. It's learned in a situation, in an environment where the consciously things are done. So language learning is like learning the grammar, how grammar is done, how words, how antonym is formed, how synonym is formed, and what's the difference between two words and how phrases are constructed, learning about it, not using the language the way a child masters it and uses it. And there lies the problem, because in schools and colleges, what happens when we talk about language learning, we keep talking about teaching about language, the rules, which is already there in the brain of the learner. So when I say 15-year-old child is in college, he or she has mastered a language, one language at least. So she knows what is subject, object, verb, how they are combined, what is antonym, what is synonym, what is morpheme, what is prefix, what is suffix. So why you waste so much time on explaining these things? Instead, what you should do, that since memory is important in language, so what happens? These are declarative items. This is noun, this is verb, this is participle, this is adjective. This is known by whether child, no, at the age of 5 or 7, or a 15, 20-year-old adult learner. So don't waste time on that. You make that declarative knowledge, that declarative memory, that whatever is there about the language, the facts, the information become procedural knowledge, so that the learner doesn't have to go back and remember, oh, what is participle in this sentence? Can I have participle, or should I have adjective, or will it come after as predicate after something or before it? So you don't have to recall all. It becomes so automatic, the declarative knowledge, the facts, that it's automatically coming. And this is one thing that lacks in our system, that we focus too much on grammar, learning language, learning about the language. So hardly see in Bihar, state like Bihar and many other states, UP, we do not become proficient users of English, because we all the time we are worried about grammar, what will come here, what word will fit here, all the time. It doesn't become automatic. So one thing related to memory will be that we convert our declarative knowledge into procedural knowledge. The memory, which is the facts, etc., they become automatic, convert. And that will happen by rehearsing it, by practice, seeing the same thing more than 3, 4, 5 times, so that all these things from short-term memory, they enter long-term memory, which is going to be permanently located in the brain there. So whenever situation comes, the same nodes can be activated, and we can use that knowledge of language. So it's better that we have language acquisition even in terms of second language like English than learning. So that we have to change. And I'll not go to these are known to you, age of acquisition, that young people learn better, no, second language, certain aspects, and older people, because the neurons have decayed from 150 to 200 billion neurons. Many see some 50, 60 billion neurons have been lost, and brain is not so plastic. Neurons have become very hardened, the synapses. So new tricks cannot be learned. So that's why you see that in many states, people English users can't differentiate between sa and sha, because our mother tongue did not allow it. Say Bhojpuri or Maithili, we don't have sh. And similarly, the Bengali speakers, they have only sh. So it's very difficult for them to not utter sh in Hindi words where it should not have been there, or even in English. So things like that happen. That is age of acquisition. Other things I'll skip. intelligence, aptitude, motivation. So that these things are important. Lastly, I'll take just about 2 minutes or so. Krashen also gave an idea related to second language acquisition. There at least three things are very important in second language acquisition. And number one is that the input that goes through ear, through eyes, what the learner reads, what the learner hears, must be comprehensible. And comprehensible input means that whatever input is there, it should be slightly higher than the current level of the learner. If it's below that, it will not become comprehensible. Say, for example, if I start talking to you about tree, see, tree को हिंदी में पेड़ कहते हैं, पेड़ में पत्ते होते हैं, पत्ते हरे रंग के होते हैं. If I talk like that, जड़ में पानी डालते हैं तो फूल निकलता है, फूल से फल बनता है. For 1 hour, nothing will be comprehensible because it's too low, no, below your current level. Or if I start talking about, you are not, say, economists, all of you, talking about inflation, है ना? Or what is the relationship between inflation and rate, the RBI repo rate, for 1 hour, it will not become comprehensible because it's beyond your current level of comprehension. So in language learning, that also is important. You all the time, if you have poems written by, say, Shakespeare or Wordsworth, and it doesn't connect to our culture, even the words are so difficult there. Sentence structure is different in poem, or we have novels and drama which doesn't relate to any situation of the learner, then what will happen? It's there. Teacher will be happy that she is explaining the poems and novels and no feminism and so on there. But these things don't relate to. So it's way beyond the current level of the learner. Most of them. Some are good if they're intelligent. They have aptitude. If their attitude is there that I have to learn, master the literature of English language, then they'll become better. Otherwise, they'll lag behind. And once this circle, vicious circle goes on, once weak, once poor, you get weaker and poorer. So this is what happens in our schools and colleges. Second thing that is important is affective filter. That again is related to other personality, attitude, motivation factors, cognitive style. That in our brain there is the anxiety, self-confidence, motivation. They play a great role. So if there is too much of play of say anxiety, if the motivation is low, if self-confidence is low, then the input will not become comprehensible. Even if it's there, it will not go to long-term memory. And this is shown by this picture. So it should be up. There should not be high level of anxiety. There should be high level of self-esteem, high level of motivation. Then comprehensible input goes to the long-term memory and becomes the learned knowledge. And the student can produce that when need arises. And lastly, we have monitor hypothesis in our brain. So when the people, whether adults are learning languages, so what happens? There is in the brain, because of our experience, some monitor kind of thing. So many of the students you must have seen, they keep monitoring that, oh, whether my sentence is going to be right or not, whether what I'm writing is correct or not, the word order is correct or not, my paragraph is good or not. So some will be watching it, monitoring their performance, their output, because they have learned it. They have learned the grammar, the vocabulary items. It has not become procedural. It has not become part of their long-term memory because there is less rehearsal, less practice. So they're afraid, they're anxious. They want to open their mouth. They won't write. So too much of monitoring, they don't say anything, they don't write anything, the learner. Or if there is no monitoring at all, you must have seen that some speakers, they keep talking in English or any other second language. It doesn't make any sense because they are not monitoring their output. What they are saying is not monitored. So that also is bad. But there are some optimal users. They because the memory and learning knowledge has become procedural, so they don't have to recall everything in English language. So their monitor is optimally used. So they pause, then they think, okay, no, I should change this word, or this sentence is not good, or something. If say if it's Hindi, maine, then they'll immediately change. Oh, ne is there, so verb should be perfect. Maine khaya, not maine kha raha hu. So this kind of optimal users. So they are better learners, and this can happen if We work on the knowledge that item don't remain items and information, they convert to knowledge, and knowledge become procedural memory. It goes to memory, and that will happen by comprehensible input. If the words are practiced, rehearsed more and more times, and students are also given chance to use them, because written knowledge, written language is dependent on spoken, because they are connected in the brain. So they are not separate. But in our colleges and schools, what happened? Everything goes through written language, right? Written grammar, written vocabulary items, everything written, and that doesn't connect to the spoken, the areas in brain. And humans are made for that only. So that this is what kind of summary of. I needed actually 2 hours for this, but I could not leave one thing, because these are all connected, interconnected to each other. That's why. And then this cartoon I found interesting one. So see, it summarizes what happens. Pronouns are missing in the man, but woman is very proficient, because she has the procedural knowledge of English language. The man doesn't have. That's why. And lastly, just 5 seconds. I like reading Toni Morrison, because she's culturally also her writings and idea related to our Indian situation and Indian psyche. So language is what measures our lives. And when I say that, language, what is there in the brain, the spoken, and which represents the written language and not only the written language. So thank you. I can take some questions if the
Yes,
participants
sir.
have
Thank you,
any.
sir. Thank you, sir,
Thank you. Thank
for
you very
your
much.
extremely informative and enlightening lecture on psychology, even neurology, and language learning. It was a fascinating experience to hear you speak.
Thank
I request Nibha ma'am to kindly take over and continue the day's proceeding. And
Or
Thank
if
you.
Professor Patil is there, we can hear her, and then we
yes,
can have a
sir.
combined session
Yes,
for
sir.
question
That's what we were
answer.
thinking.
That
That's
could
what we
also.
were thinking. Yes,
Fine,
sir. Yes,
fine,
sir.
fine.
So we'll take the
Okay.
questions together.
Yeah.
Then
Thanks.
I'll get chance to drink my tea hot. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
And we can request her once again to come and complete her lecture, though it is a bit disturbing due to the network. And then we can take the question answer session together for 15 minutes, even if you have to wait 15 minutes extra. So over to Geeta ma'am. Ma'am, you can unmute yourself now.
Am I audible?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I was talking about the first phase of feminism and utopia, and I think I have stopped myself at the reference of Kessler, uh, who has introduced this theory. In fact, I can say that the in first phase, the revise of domestic arrangements to ease the women's labor, and he was concentrating on this rather. The third point in the first phase, that is the reevaluation of mothering, I say, or the importance of nurturing. This was the very important point which was discussed in first phase of feminism and utopia, that the revaluation of mothering or importance of nurturing should be revised or thought again. But most of this first phase was paradised, or the humor was created. Like I can give you examples of fictions like the Beewise or a feminine iconoclast, or there were the parody of male pretensions or the parody of am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the parody of the male characters, or the, I can say, delight of a role rehearsal was enjoyed by the readers as well as by the audiences. But this has ignited a new issue to the philosophers, that how this rehearsal of role and the motherhood of a woman can be considered for the equivalence or given importance for the, I can say that you can call it as the equality, gender equality into the society. And while doing this, most of the writers were male writers. Instead of saying that there were no female writers or women writers during this period first phase is dominated by the male writers maximum. But as we come to the second phase of feminism, the this phase was dominated by the upper middle class white women, especially. The second phase, there was no space for the, I can say that, lower middle class or the lower class or the non-white women to speak about the equality. The naturally reason behind this was education. Education was mostly spread into the upper middle class, and the white women were more, I can say that, the educated than the other class or other color, or we can say race women. So naturally, this second phase was dominated by the upper middle class white women, and they have better addressed the second phase in a feministic point of view, that saying not only women needs equality, but the equality for the nature, animal, everybody should be addressed equally in this society. Why the power and decision making and importance is given to the male only. So the second phase was rather, I can call it as a rehearsal of the connected. I am
Yes,
correct.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry. The weather is not very okay. So though I am on hotspot, I'm frequently getting disconnected.
Yes, ma'am. Please
So
continue.
yeah. So the second phase was for the better world, for the better place to live in, for men, for female, for everybody, for animals, for everybody. This phase was, this world should be a better place for everybody to live in. And this phase was influenced by, firstly, the civil rights movement in 1960s. So the feminism was not only, I can say that, talking about the rights of women during that time, but it was talking about the rights of migrants, rights of the blacks, or rights of the different races, because this was the period which was maximally dominated by the migration. But the huge migration, because of the we can say that because of the independence in different countries given by the British government, except Fiji and other countries were not independent during that time, but most of the countries were independent. And after the Second World War, the maximum migration has happened to America. Most of the people were migrated to America, and they were thinking about their rights in America, their existence, their identity in America. Because I'm talking about the American feminism here. So I'm talking about the migration in America. So during that period, maximum migration has happened in America, and this phase was, that's why, was, we can say that, influenced by the civil rights movement in 60s, the women's movement in 70s, and the increased ethnic diversity. For example, you can see that Alice Walker has talked in Color Purple about all these ethnic diversities. This ethnic diversity was also was considered, and that's why this second phase was especially the phase of deconstruction of conventional discursive categories, including, I say, human, that is rethinking of identity. The first phase talks about the gender, the motherhood, or the nurturing, or we can say that the family, the marriage institution, all these basic issues. Since after the Second World War, spread of education made these things subside and think about other people also, not about the white women's equality, but the equality of every caste, creed, race, ethnicity, everybody. And then this second phase started talking that there should be two categories only. One category was the male category and another category, the female category. But then later on, it also included the, we can say that the third gender category also. And then this has gave the space to other things also. Even they have started thinking about the, we can say that nature as one of the important thing in these, and the deconstruction of all these concepts. Am I connected?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So these concepts started rethinking once again. During this period, the post-modernization and postmodern phase came into existence. Which has influenced the feminism once again, and this gave a breakaway from the conventional genre, and the people started giving space to feminist writer into the visitor guide framework, visitors or guide framework, or we can say that the letter writing, every framework, every genre was dominated by feminism. Up to the second phase, the fiction, drama, poetry used to talk about feminism, but later on, every genre started talking about feminism, and then we can say that this
It seems we're having network issues again.
hello.
Yes, ma'am.
She is disconnected again.
Yes, yes, I think she has disconnected again.
Sorry. Yeah, so you want me to come in to answer these questions in the meantime?
Well, yes, sir, maybe we can. So actually,
I
we
have the questions in front of me.
Oh, you do? Okay, sir.
Through WhatsApp.
Wonderful.
By Subodhji. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Number one is from Vijay Chandra Verma. He says that is it that right to say that Indian students have to learn at least 3 languages, L1 mother tongue, L2 the second language, and the educational institution, and third foreign language? No. Actually, see, mother tongue is not learned; it is acquired. So we don't have to actually teach them really. We can teach certain finer aspects of grammar, literature, like alankar, chand, etc., metaphor, simile, these things in English, they'll come there. And when we say L2, that includes foreign language. Only difference is that we don't see here, or we don't get chance to see or hear the second language, because it's not present. The speakers are not present in our vicinity. That way, it is foreign. But other things remain similar, like English, the educational language that we have, if it is a second language. So 1, 2, 3 actually is the serial number, not the andragogy of it. That so whether it's foreign language or the third language, fourth language, fifth language, they're all L2s. And in foreign language, that's why the culture will be there, because they are not visible here. So more the kind of culture will be included there. And for pronunciation sake, some native speakers no, speaking to us, or native like speakers speaking to us. But it's not necessary that we have to have a third language. Actually, you can do everything in your mother tongue, but our Indian polity and the policy, they don't allow us to do that. We used to do this some 100, 150 years ago, that we had C.V. Raman, or even our former president who died, Anna. So they could do so many things, even science and maths in their mother tongue. And in many states, even up to college, they manage it in Bangla or Assamese, Marathi, Gujarati. So it's possible. Then second is that by Shabina Kute, I think. And she's asking, decoding and coding and decoding of language means transmission of neurons and waves. Yeah, in a way, it is true. The way we see, actually, brain doesn't get these vowels and consonants there. There are so vocation. Let's see, the sounding vocalization happens here. So brain actually records, the neurons record the postures, like that, and various organs. So the way it is coded and say decoded and coded, the same way it is retrieved also. The same nodes are even activated when you produce a language. So they are same thing, as I understand. Third is that by Vijay Chandra Vermaji, why pronunciation is sometimes very different from what is written. That is because language begins with spoken. No, so spoken variety is the language, and it's afterwards that we write it. So written history is only say 3,000 to 3,005 years old, and many languages are still unwritten, but they are spoken. And the spoken language changes very fast in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So think of English from Chaucer and Cadmon's time to Shakespeare, say 17th, 18th century, and from that to modern English. It has changed so much, the spoken English. But writing is more kind of permanent. It doesn't change so fast. So we retain the tradition of written language. So for example, in English, we have FIVE. So FIVE was once upon a time in Old English pronounced as fever. And the E denoted there that the vowel previous to is, it is long. So that was the hint. So that's why E was there. And E was pronounced as So fever. Then in 200, 300 years time, that got lost in English. So, but the spelling remained. Spelling doesn't change. And also in 17th century onwards, the E, long E's, they became diphthongs. I. So fev became five, weef became wife, moose, ooze became ow, so moose became mouse, whose became house, and so on. Written language doesn't change so much. That is the tradition that we continue. That's why so much of disparity between the way we write something and the way we pronounce. So that's why if a learner is actually a master of spoken language and then she learns the written language, then these things can be as declarative knowledge taught. That okay, the spelling of this will be that. You don't begin with that when the child or an adult, a new adult comes to learn English. You don't begin with that. That why, no, you see, E comes before I and so on, or after it. You don't do that. That will come later when they have mastered the spoken language.
Sir,
Next,
sir,
yeah, ma'am has come back.
no, sir. In this context, I would like to add one question from my side.
Right.
That there are phonetically exact languages like in Devanagari script, in Hindi or
Right.
in Bengali,
Right.
we pronounce what we write.
Right.
So how
Mostly,
is
mostly.
that mostly?
They're
So,
also there. See, Hindi has lost. Hindi has lost sh. We don't say wish, so we say wish, and
Yes.
most of us. So were in initial position has been lost. So
okay.
it's a b, dish. We don't say Bangla. Similarly, lost sir and sh.
Yes.
So whether it's shape or shape, everything
True.
wish
Okay.
also they are said. So that
Okay. All right.
yeah. And Madam Ishrat Jahan has said that language is social and cultural spectrum. Yes, that is true. See, language is social only. If you don't get input, we have example of Genie and others. If you deprive a child, or even in modern times, suppose father is Bengali speaker and mother is Bhojpuri speaker, and they converse in Hindi, their child will be proficient in Hindi. So, because it's socially constructed, the child will hear only Hindi, no Bangla and no Bhojpuri. So she'll not become proficient. And also culturally, you see the collocation, which word goes with what, which word fits in what situation. In Hindi, you don't address your teachers as tum, but in it's possible in many languages where we don't have construct like apni or aap. So there, or in English, you can have you for everyone, but that you can't do that in Hindi. So it's culturally also there. You can call someone Behenji, but not to a young, even if she's married. In Delhi, you cannot call her Behenji. Then you'll get shoe beating, no? But in other places, it's fairly all right to add G. So that is there. And for engineering students, what happens? Yeah, there you need, they have already mastered the procedural knowledge, the how to make use of the grammar and vocabulary in their mother tongue, or maybe some second language. Like in Andhra, one is, say, proficient in Telugu, and also possible that engineering student may be proficient in Urdu or Hindi, and then she has to make use of English. And for that, so the cultural things will come, but then there you use more declarative knowledge. They already possess the procedural use of language, the skills, what to do with the knowledge that they have. So they are right that more grammar is required there, because they only have to change the parameters, that okay, what words will go together well, in what context you will use participle or an adjective, that will be different. So this kind of knowledge is required, but pronunciation you cannot change, because neurons get hardwired, the synapses, for recording certain kind of sound. So the phonetic distinction of English that is there, say if a child starts at the age of 6 or 7, that capacity, that plasticity in neuron and synapses is lost. So it's very difficult. Some still manage, but most of them can't do that, because they have become so used to it that it doesn't record that way. That neuron doesn't record that or something. It will be like a noise, something, it won't be registered. And see, in India, it's the again mistake of our policymakers and the social situation. Why you worry for pronunciation? Look at the English of say Germans, the even professors of English, or a French professor or Arabic professor of English, how they speak English. They don't care, the Russian user or Japanese user. Why we worry about that? Let there be a Telugu style English, a Kannada style English, a Bangla style English. And there is something common in India, that we understand each other well, even if something is missing. So don't aspire for becoming no, speak English like an say British or an American. No, that is not possible. Then ma'am has come back. Otherwise, I have only 2 questions left. I'll finish that.
Come back, and she's without a video now. Perhaps she's trying to connect once again.
Okay, let her continue. Let it just continue.
Geeta ma'am, you can kindly unmute yourself. Geeta ma'am, you unmute yourself. Yes. Yes.
Audible now?
Okay, she has come back.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry I'm disturbing sir even frequently.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I enjoy it.
I hope you should have finished your 2 questions. It was very
Okay. No,
interesting.
okay. You take on. Just you finish. Then only two. One of Professor Nikhil Kumar and someone Ishrat Jahan. That
A
I'll do it.
small sharing with you, sir.
Yeah.
I personally feel that language is always dominated by the people who are in power.
Right. That is the integration. Integration is their
If
motivation.
you go to Japan, when Japan was very dominant, at that time people try to speak the Japanese
Right.
accent, and later on, they accepted even Chinese, and now everybody is accepting the Indian accent in English
Yeah. True. True.
outside
Right.
if you go. So,
Right. Right.
the mob and the power dominating all these languages in
Right.
computer, we can see that most of the ITNs are migrating from the south side of India. So the accent is I
Right.
and all these, and many Indian words accepted by the Americans, and even the British Oxford Dictionary is giving
Right.
the supplement now. So
Right.
I'm so
But
sorry,
but
sir.
now Indian languages are taking the place of English.
Yes,
Hindi, Tamil,
yes,
Bangla dominance. That
yes,
the other smaller languages
yeah.
they have to merge with or go towards these
So
dominant state
now
languages.
accent
Okay.
almost people
Yeah.
are
Carry on, man.
this thing is going on. So I'm so sorry. I don't know how much people
No
remember.
problem. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, the lecture. I don't know. Even I am not
Yeah.
able to concentrate on my lecture. So much of this
Yeah.
different.
It was in short-term memory and it is gone. So you
Yeah,
have to.
it is.
Right.
So I am, in between little bit getting disturbed, and then how much I'm reaching to the people, to the audience, I don't know. But
Yeah, we are
anyhow, I was
getting disconnected again and again, ma'am.
disconnected again.
No. We are getting time to time disconnected. We would like you to come to the conclusion, and then we have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
number.
I will come to the conclusion. Like I will just sum up the third phase,
Yeah.
and the third phase I was talking about the it's a break away from a conventional genre, and I was giving different examples even. And the third phase is forming new words for this equality in gender, equality in power, equality in decision making, and I was talking about all. But this third phase is presented in the innovative forms, and that innovative forms is dreams of expanded social justice. We can say that. So this innovative form is talking about the social justice, especially, and the forms are the different experiments for the social transformation. The feminism has took up a different type of form in a third phase, in a postmodern phase, that is the equality not for women but equality for everybody in this. So the process of a personal and a social transformation in the third phase was major aim of the writers. The writers of American feminist of these American feminists is the we can call it as the discussed by the writers during this period, and the people were talking about
I think she's again disconnected. So Amritendu, you can go back with the questions. Amritendu, are you
Yes,
there?
ma'am. Yes.
Actually, yeah, I have 3 or 4 left. So
Yeah,
Yes,
now
sir.
I'll join. Okay.
Yes, sir. Please.
Yeah, Professor Nikhil Kumarji has asked that will the picture be the same if the same idea is expressed in 2 languages? No, no. So what happens? The ideas are given shape of language, the dress of language, but then what happens? Language also kind of imposes the thought also gets dressed by language, and no reality can be expressed completely in one language. So since thought comes via language, and every reality cannot be expressed in one language, so how the realities, the ideas get shape of language, that varies from language to language. The way we see the world is also dictated partly by language. So that's why the pictures will be different. So for example, if in a language like say Maithili, Bhojpuri, we don't have many terms for vermilion, say many English colors. So if we make a picture, then these things will not notice that, okay, these colors are also there maybe. So pictures will be different. Even an idea, so like evil or ghost or fool, foolish, and a moron, these have some cultural things there coming from society and the particular linguistic community. So I think it requires more discussion, and I could have elaborated, but in short time I'll say that no, the pictures will be different because we are limited by our experience in languages, the 2 languages. Next is that of yeah, this I have taken care of. Gent thing. Then someone has asked that can Suresh Kurapati, can we say poor English learning in the classroom is direct outcome of loss of neurons? Not always, but it's possible that if in childhood or even in later period something has happened to some part of brain, or maybe due to poor nutrition, if the child doesn't get say nutritious food or lack of sleep, also no proper sleep, because that helps food and sleep also help consolidate our knowledge of a language and memory. So these things are also related, but neurons either at nascent period couldn't have developed in certain area, Broca's area, or say hippocampal area, or amygdala is too big because all the time the child is afraid, anxious, fearful. So that all these things, disorders can be there of language learning, partly, but it doesn't happen all the time. Next is Ishrat Jahan. Do you mean language is social and cultural spectrum? Uh, yeah, this I have taken care of. Then Ezaz Ahmad Sahab, could you please throw light on schemata? Now, that is a matter of, say, about 1 hour lecture, a separate thing. But schema, see, our knowledge get constructed through schemata. So what happens? It's not fixed. Neurons always keep talking to each other, and also the information that we get through our 5 senses. Also, then in society, in culture, many items come from there, and we accommodate. We change our knowledge. Like the knowledge of a cow is different in a 3-year-old child than say 15-year-old uh, 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 say teen. It's different. What has happened? Because of the development of schemata, the 15-year-old child teen has added certain information to the construct of cow, but a 3-year-old child hasn't. So schema does have a role, but requires how you can change it and how it plays a role. That is a separate discussion that needs more time. Um, yeah, I think I have covered everything.
Yes, sir. These
Yeah,
were the
I
questions.
know. Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for
Any new
responding to the questions.
right. Anything? Any more question? They can ask verbally.
Sir, I was wondering about one issue. So since we have some time, so
Right.
I could raise it. So since you were talking about the wavelengths and the frequencies
Right.
pertaining to different languages,
Mhm.
what is your opinion about, people say that some languages are more melodious than others, or in the case of poetry, we see that languages are used in a particular way. So do you think something is there
Yeah, that is
relating
true.
to?
See, actually, in the course of development, becoming human, songs played a bigger role. The melody, the rhythm, you know, the tonicity, that is very important. And there is no language that won't have these things there. And also, the access to the different areas of brain, language areas, is shorter through songs and poems. It doesn't require all these Broca's areas, Wernicke's area, angular gyrus, you know, hippocampus. No, it's shorter. For smell and for song, it is shorter. And right hemisphere takes care of these non-verbal aspects. So that does play a role. But then in the course of development, see, this is what happens because all these are features of non-verbal, but features of the spoken language. So somehow or the other, we lose it, but that is important. Like in English, for example, it doesn't matter what your consonant is or consonant cluster. Uh, Most important thing is syllable, the stress, because English is stress timed language. Stress, if you miss the stress, the meaning will not be there. So like import will mean something else, and import will mean something else. Export will mean one thing, and export will mean something else. So noun and verb. So what is important there is the vowel, and vowel refers to the tonicity, the tone, and singing kind of quality. So, and that too, the vowels which are, say, unstressed. So, will not make many change, but e, the stressed vowel. So, they do play a role, but they have, in, say, 1000 years, 1500 years, they have changed our habits. So, some have retained it. Sanskrit was very, because it had pitch, and that was very important, that how you change it. But intonation, all the languages have it. That's why you can see the difference in Bihar between Bhojpuri and Maghi and Maithili, or Bangla and Assamese. Even if the tenses are similar, the tense, the suffixes, or the words are similar, but the intonation will make it different. That is important. So that's why we say that in language learning, we have to have different kind of material. So only one kind of written material is not enough, because many things are conveyed through the tone, the pitch, the accent, like in English. Yeah, so that is important. Yeah.
Niva ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Amritendu. Thank you, sir. We
Thank
have
you,
requested
ma'am.
Patil to send her recorded lecture later on, which we can keep for record. And right now, I am requesting Dr. Jha, Dr. S.K. Jha, to connect her on phone. She'll be connected, and then we can put some questions that we have. The participants
Okay.
must be eager to get those questions answered. So she has said that if we can connect her on phone, is it possible, Dr. Jha?
Yes, ma'am.
Is
We
it
can
possible
do.
to connect her on phone?
I need her phone number.
I've sent you the phone number just now.
Okay.
Kindly try to connect. We can take 5 to 10 minutes more.
Okay, ma'am.
Is there any issue?
Good evening, ma'am. This is Subodh.
Yeah, good evening.
Um,
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay, but I just wanted to put some questions before you for the audience. Okay, so be online. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she's online, so I can put questions here. Okay, just a minute. Ma'am, the first question is, it is by C. Saravanan. Would you mind explaining us about the difference between radical feminism and global feminism?
Yeah. The global feminism talks about the third phase of under the postmodern influence. Radical feminists were those who were talking about the exchange of power. I mean, from the patriarchal society to the feminist society, absolutely. They wanted to have the absolute reversal of the society. They want the women to dominate the society and become the mother-oriented society of oriented society, called as radical feminists in the beginning. And there was a big second phase where the civil rights movement, the feminist movement was influenced by the. At the time, the radical feminists were very, very they were talking about ruling the whole world. But universal feminism, as I said, the first phase concentrates on both on human, both on can call it as equality for every existence in this world, which includes the nature, which includes the plants, which includes the birds, includes the animals, everything. This is what is the difference. So second phase talks about man versus woman or woman versus man. No third existence they used to consider. And as man has dominated this world, now it's the turn of a woman to dominate the world. So this feminism was not including other than third gender people. It is not equality for them also. Only two people were existing in this world for them. It's man. Universal feminism has included the right for some third gender gender marriages comes of background, races, slightest difference, I can say that for even dystopian utopia even has observed difference for like that radical feminism and universal feminism was also having a blurred line in the third. Hello?
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And the second and the last question so far is it is by Dr. Vijay Chandra Verma. He asked, postmodern feminism talks about equality. The term sounds very easy to understand, but what I think is that the word requires wide interpretation. Please express your views.
I missed a few words in your sentence.
Yeah, the question is, postmodern feminism talks about equality. The term sounds very easy to understand, but what I think is that the word requires wide interpretation.
Yes, definitely. So, wide interpretations, even when we talk about the Rohingyas, even who doesn't have the identity, for them also equality. And that's why third phase always says that there is no race, caste, creed, only one category is that is existing category of identity only. What you are existing in this world should have equal importance. No doubt about that. Equality, seeing equality is very easy, but that's why we have the right now, the racial discrimination, the civil war, we can call it. And for a few days in lockdown only in America about the racial discrimination, even there people were asking for equality. Still they are fighting for equality. But the world which was existing before 100 years and was talking about equality for everybody is different than after the 100 years. Right now, what is different? This is what has done by utopians only. Utopians are trying to imagine the world and the world equality, both. So, because of utopians only, this word equality is gaining more and more, wider and wider importance and understanding. It is because of utopians only. And equality word, for this word, I can say that who gave birth to this word is feminists gave birth to this word. From there only we started trying to understand that what is equality, no doubt about that. But who gave birth? The feminists gave birth to this word. And think about the world before a few years and think about the world right now. How equality now gaining I can say that the real meaning to the people. And definitely, as the world is changing very fast, and the utopians are doing their business, there we can say that spread of understanding of this world, or imagine they are trying to imagine the different world, trying to put I can say that the more space, more importance to this world. Naturally, the postmodern period will give wide meaning to this world, no doubt about that. The world is different, no doubt. So we can say that we are trying a lot, and utopians are playing a great role in giving the better meaning to this world.
Thank you, ma'am, for being.
Thank you, sir. And I'm extremely sorry for the inconvenience caused to all of you.
It's okay. It happens. Niva ma'am, over to you.
Yes, sir. So I think we don't have any more questions, and we can now conclude. As I told you, we have already requested Dr. Geeta M. Patil to share her recorded lecture, which she'll be sharing very soon, and we shall be able to get it and put it on the YouTube maybe later on. So, and we are very sorry for the inconvenience caused on her part today, which was something that could not be, solved at that very moment, because the weather is very bad at her place and the network is not working properly. So I once again thank you all for being here today, and we have 2 more days left, tomorrow and day after, and we shall again assemble at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Mishra sir, thanks a lot for being here with all of us. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah. Thank you.
End the meeting now.
So before we end, let me post the feedback link.
Yeah. That is important. That is important. Yes.
Feedback link is there. So should we end now?
Yeah, we can end and we shall be there tomorrow. The feedback link on the WhatsApp group also.
Yeah, WhatsApp group also. Yeah. So should we conclude?
Yeah, we should conclude. We are waiting for you to end the meeting.
Thank you.